The hallway outside my room at St. Luke's had that particular fluorescent hum that doesn't let you forget where you are. A blood pressure cuff had left a red mark on my arm I could still feel more than see. I was sitting up in a paper gown, dialing my son's number for the second time. At 9:20 that night, I called my only son from an emergency room, and he answered like I'd interrupted something. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I did, in that hallway, for a lot longer than a second. Around my neck, on a chain, was the one thing from home I happened to have on me. A St. Christopher medal, small, dented at one edge, older than my son by about a decade. I've carried that thing 2.1 million miles. It's never once let me sit alone in a room like this. I didn't know yet what I was going to do about any of it. I just knew the hallway was cold, and the phone in my hand felt heavier than it should have. But let me back up. None of this had a name yet. I just knew my chest hurt, and I knew who I was supposed to call. Welcome to Channel Name. Get settled, because this one is going to take you somewhere. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you're going to love it here. My name is Roy Calloway. I'm 69 years old, and for 43 years I drove long haul out of Boise, Idaho. 2.1 million miles, without so much as a fender bender on my record. I'm not telling you that to impress you. Insurance companies used to send me letters about it, actually, like I'd won something. I'm telling you because it matters later. Every single mile of it matters later. I still change the oil in my own truck, and my sister's. Paying somebody $40 to do a job I've done since 1974 has never once made sense to me. I drive 40 minutes most every Sunday to sit with my granddaughter Emma at her Little League games. I go even in the stretches where my son forgets to mention which field, which happens more than it should. I keep the guest room made up out at the farmhouse year-round, sheets clean, in case anybody in this family ever needs a bed on short notice. Nobody ever has, not yet. I keep it made up anyway. Once a year, at a truck stop outside Twin Falls, I quietly cover a stranger's fuel bill and leave before they can thank me. Somebody did that for me once, in 1979, outside Elko, Nevada. A trucker I never got the name of, paying off a fuel bill I couldn't cover that month. I've never forgotten what it felt like to have a debt like that settled by a total stranger who wanted nothing back for it. I've been paying it forward, one tank at a time, for going on 45 years now. I also drove Emma to her first day of kindergarten, because Kevin had a work call he said couldn't move. I didn't mind. I've never minded being the one who shows up. I minded, some, being the one who's easiest to schedule around. Here's one more thing you need to see before we go on. Around my neck on a chain, I wear a St. Christopher medal. Louise gave it to me the week I got my CDL, back before we were even married a full year. Told me St. Christopher looks after travelers, and I was about to become one professionally. I hung that medal off the mirror of every rig I ever drove, 43 years running. Same medal through 6 trucks, 2 blown transmissions, and 1 jackknife outside Pocatello I still don't like to talk about. When I turned in my keys for good, I took it off that last mirror and put it on a chain instead. Wore it under my shirt most days, where you couldn't see it unless you knew to look. Some things you don't retire. I owned exactly one suit for most of my adult life, the kind that still fits a man if he's careful about pie. I've been wearing it to funerals since the Clinton administration, first half. Louise passed 6 years ago. Quick, a stroke, no long goodbye, and I'm grateful for that much even now, though I've never said that out loud to anybody before this. My son Kevin took it hard. I watched him get quieter around me afterward, not closer, the way some men grieve sideways instead of forward. I gave him room for that. I figured a man needs a little runway to find his own way back. I'm still waiting on the runway, some days. I try not to keep score. I mostly succeed. Tuesdays I put on my good boots and go into town. Cards, I tell people, and people believe it, because an old trucker playing cards on a Tuesday is about the least interesting sentence you can say to somebody. My sister Ellen thinks it's cribbage. Gus, my oldest friend, has never once bothered to ask, which is one of the reasons he's my oldest friend. Nobody's ever asked me which game. I thought the worst night of that year was going to be the one where I buried Louise. I was wrong about which year. And I was wrong about which night. It was a Friday night in March. I was home alone, rinsing a coffee cup at the sink, when my chest went tight. I know the signs. Louise's father went the same way, years before I ever met her, and the way she used to describe watching it happen stuck with me. I didn't call an ambulance. I got my keys, and I drove myself to St. Luke's, both hands steady on the wheel the whole way. 43 years teaches a man to drive through almost anything, including the thing that might be killing him. The drive itself took 11 minutes. I know because I looked at the clock when I pulled out of the driveway, and looked again pulling into the emergency bay. Some part of my brain never stops logging mile markers, even when the rest of me is busy being scared. A nurse named Priya got me on a monitor by 8:50. She had steady hands and didn't rush anything, which I appreciated more than I said out loud. By 9:20 I was stable enough to be scared instead of busy, which is its own kind of relief and its own kind of terrible. I called my son. Kevin picked up on the fourth ring. I could hear music behind him, and laughing, a lot of it, the kind of noise 40 people make when they're having a good night. I told him plainly. Chest pains. No ambulance, I drove myself. Doctors wanted to keep me for observation, nothing more specific than that yet. Take an Uber home, Dad, he said. We have 40 people at the lake house. Don't make this a thing. I want you to sit with that number for a second. 40 people at a lake house, and not one seat for the man who taught his son to swim in that lake. It's fine, I told him. You sure? He asked, already somewhere else in his own head. Go on then, I said. Say hi to Ashley. He said he would. He said he'd check on me tomorrow. Then the noise swallowed him back up and the line went dead. I sat there a minute looking at the phone like it might explain itself. It didn't. Phones rarely do. I didn't raise my voice. I've never once raised my voice at that boy, not as a teenager, not since. I put the phone down on the blanket and counted ceiling tiles instead, an old habit from waiting rooms and way stations, counting things instead of feeling them. I got to 61 before a nurse came back to check the monitor. Priya checked on me twice more before her shift ended. The second time, she asked if there was anybody she should call. I told her no, there wasn't. I watched something cross her face that I recognized, not pity exactly, more like a woman doing quiet arithmetic about a stranger's life and not liking the total. I sat in that paper gown until almost 3 in the morning, when they finally cleared me to go home. I called my own cab. The driver was a young man, talking the whole way about a community college class he was taking. He never once asked why a man my age was leaving a hospital alone at 3 in the morning. I was grateful for that too, in a smaller way. I've driven through a lot of weather in 43 years. Black ice outside Cheyenne that took 11 other trucks off the road that same night and left mine untouched, for no reason I could ever explain except attention. A whiteout that closed Interstate 15 for 6 hours with me sitting in the middle of it, engine idling, radio off. Waiting, the way you wait when waiting is the actual job. A wind shear outside Rawlins that put a tanker on its side half a mile ahead of me. I felt that one in my chest before I ever saw it in my mirrors. None of those nights made me raise my voice either. Weather doesn't respond to volume. Neither, I was starting to understand, do sons. You learn the difference between a storm and a grade. A storm you wait out. A grade you downshift, keep your hands where they belong, and get through it quiet, because panicking never once shortened a hill. Sitting in that gown, I understood which one this was. Not a storm. A long grade. And I was already downshifting. 2 weeks later, we did the birthday dinner we'd rescheduled. Emma had been sick the week of her actual birthday, so we pushed it to a Saturday at Kevin and Ashley's. I brought a present she'd wanted for a month, a bicycle horn shaped like a frog, and she made me install it before we even sat down to cake. Later, full of cake, she climbed into my lap on the porch swing. She was proud of something. Kids get like that right before they say something they don't know is a secret. Mommy said we get the big house when you go to heaven, she told me. I didn't flinch. 43 years of keeping a straight face through waystation small talk is good practice for exactly this kind of moment. Where'd you hear that, sweet pea? I asked her, gentle as I could make it. Mommy and Daddy were talking about the remodel, she said, already losing interest, already back to the frog horn. She honked it twice and went to go find her mother. I sat on that porch swing a while longer by myself. 7-year-olds don't lie. They repeat. Whatever Emma had said to me had come out of somebody else's mouth first. At a kitchen table, probably. Over coffee, probably. While I was somewhere else entirely, changing oil, or standing in line at the bank, same as any other Tuesday. I didn't say anything to Kevin or Ashley that night. I helped clear plates. I said my goodbyes. I drove home with both hands steady on the wheel, same as always. The whole way, I thought about a big house I apparently already didn't live in anymore, in somebody's plans if not yet on paper. If you've been listening for a while, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. It costs you nothing and it means everything to us. Hit the like button while you're at it, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I called Gus Redding that week. 30 years running near identical routes will do more for a friendship than almost anything else I can think of. You learn a man's patience by how he handles the same stretch of Interstate 84 in the same weather, over and over, without it ever once wearing him down. You gonna tell me what's wrong? Gus said when he picked up. Or are we just gonna drink coffee and pretend? Coffee first, I told him. Gus and I hauled the same freight lanes for the better part of 3 decades. Sometimes we'd pass each other going opposite directions on the same stretch of highway, headlights flashing, 2 men living the same life a few hundred miles out of sync. He retired 18 months before I did. By his own account, he spent the first year of it slowly driving his wife out of her mind by reorganizing her garage twice. She sent him back out into the world eventually, mostly for her own sanity, and regular coffee is what came of it, most weeks, rain or shine. He drove over the next morning. I told him about the ER, the 40 people, the Uber. Then I told him about Emma's whisper. I watched something go still behind his eyes, the look of a man who's spent 3 decades reading whether nobody else can see yet. What Gus was good for wasn't advice. It was a phone book's worth of people who still owed him favors from the CB radio days, back when everybody in this valley knew everybody, one way or another. He came back 2 days later with a name. An old friend of his, Marlene, worked the front desk at a title company downtown. Marlene remembered Kevin and Ashley coming in 6 weeks earlier, before my ER visit, not after, to ask about the future remodel of a farmhouse on Cloverdale Road. My farmhouse. My road. 6 weeks, Gus said low, like the number itself was the insult. That's before you were even sick, Roy. There was more. A land agent named Dale Fenwick had pulled comparables on my back 40 acres that same week. Asking price, recent sales, the whole packet a man puts together when he's getting ready to sell something that isn't his yet. I called an attorney Marlene recommended, a woman named Patricia Kwan who does estate work out of an office downtown that smells like good coffee and old paper. I brought her everything, the remodel meeting, the comparables, Emma's whisper. I laid it all out on her desk like evidence, because by then that's exactly what I'd started to think of it as. Patricia read through my existing will while I sat there. Mr. Calloway, she said finally, this document leaves everything to Kevin outright. No conditions. No trust. Nothing that requires him to keep the land in the family, or keep anyone in that house at all. I asked her what my options were. Several, she said. Let's start with what you actually want to happen to that farmhouse after you're gone. I knew the answer to that one before she finished the question. I thought about Emma on that porch swing, honking her frog horn, 7 years old and already being used as a courier for a conversation she didn't understand. I thought about 40 people at a lake house, and 1 empty chair. I wanted to go to my granddaughter, I said. Not through her parents. To her. Patricia didn't blink. She'd clearly heard some version of this sentence before, from other clients, in other offices that smelled like coffee and old paper. "That's very doable," she said. "It's just going to take some paperwork." "I've got time," I told her. 9 years on a loan committee teaches a man patience with paperwork. She looked up at that. It was the first time I'd mentioned the bank to her. I watched her file the detail away the way a good attorney files everything away, quietly, for later, without comment. That Tuesday, same as every Tuesday, I put on my good boots and drove into town. The bank's loan committee packet was waiting on the table, same as always. A stack of applications I review, same as I have for 9 years, quiet, unpaid, mostly invisible to everyone including my own family. Kevin and Ashley's application was in it. $220,000 for something called Pulse Studio Boise, with a guarantor line at the bottom. My name was already typed on it. Roy Calloway. A signature line nobody had asked me to sign yet, sitting in a stack I was never supposed to see. My own name, already wet on the line, so to speak. The debt ratio was printed right there in black and white, plain as a way station readout. 61%, before anybody added my guarantee to it. I sat there a long moment with that packet in my hands. It was the one room in this town where nobody in my family has ever thought to look for me. I'd thought I was looking at a family that maybe forgot to call an old man back. I was looking at a family that had already spent money I hadn't agreed to lend, on a house I hadn't agreed to leave them. 6 weeks, and they hadn't found a single minute to ask me any of it to my face. The next 12 days I did the kind of work nobody sees and nobody thanks you for. I said nothing to Kevin. I kept showing up to Sunday visits with Emma exactly as I always have. Same drive, same 40 minutes, same seat at whichever field she was playing on that week. I've hauled a lot of loads I didn't fully trust the tie-downs on. You don't announce that. You check the chains twice and keep driving normal. At the next loan committee meeting, I recused myself on the record, citing the family relationship. It's 2 sentences in the minutes. Nobody at that table asked a single follow-up question. In 9 years I've never once needed to explain myself to that room, and they extended me that same courtesy on the one day I actually did. Patricia helped me word a 1-page letter declining to serve as guarantor on the application. No reason given beyond the 2 words that mattered. I decline. Without a guarantor, the application's own 61% debt ratio disqualifies it under the bank's standing policy. Nobody at that bank has to reject my son's family for me. The numbers do it on their own, same as they do it for anybody else who walked in with that ratio and no cosigner. You understand? Patricia said, sliding the letter across her desk for my signature. Once this is filed, it's final. There's no soft version of a declination. I've signed harder things, I told her. I thought about a bill of lading I signed once outside Laramie, in a whiteout, for a load I wasn't sure I'd make it through the night with. That signature felt heavier than this one. This one just felt sadder. Patricia also finished the new estate documents that week. The farmhouse, the land, and the balance of what I've got, somewhere around $540,000, all told. More than I ever expected a truck driver's savings account to add up to. All of it routed into a trust for Emma. My sister Ellen Boyce agreed to administer it. Emma gets a standing right to occupy the farmhouse whenever she wants, for as long as she wants. Nobody can sell so much as the mailbox before her 25th birthday. Ellen didn't ask many questions either, when I brought it to her. She just asked one. Does Kevin know? Not yet, I said. Does he need to? Eventually, I said. Just not from me. Not yet. 3 days after the committee meeting, a meeting he had no way of knowing had even happened, Kevin called. Warm as anything, the way he used to sound as a boy asking to borrow the truck for a first date. Dad, we want to do a family dinner Sunday. Talk about the future, get everybody on the same page. I said yes before he finished the sentence. He had no idea the loan was already dead on its own arithmetic. He had no idea the will was already rewritten, signed, and sitting in a folder in Patricia's office with my sister's name on the trustee line. "Sunday works," I told him. "What time?" "6," he said. "Ashley's doing a roast." I told him 6 was fine. I've eaten a lot of meals in my life not knowing what was actually on the table until I sat down at it. This was going to be one more. 4 days after that, Ellen showed me something on her phone over coffee, our regular coffee, same as always, Gus across the table pretending not to read over my shoulder. Ashley had posted a studio photo online, new equipment, good lighting, captioned, "Building something for the next generation." One scroll below it sat an old photo of a family dinner, Emma's spot at the table conspicuously empty, from a visit I hadn't been invited to in months. I want you to sit with that caption for a second, the way I had to. I was holding a mug of coffee that had gone cold in my hand without my noticing. Building something for the next generation. Patricia called later that same week with something she'd found reviewing the loan file at my request. The application already listed a $12,500 deposit, non-refundable, already paid to a contractor for the studio build-out. They hadn't waited for approval. They bet real money on a signature I hadn't given them yet. "That's not planning ahead, Roy," Patricia said. "That's spending money you don't have on a yes, nobody said." I asked her what that meant for the application, practically speaking. "It means even if you'd said yes," she said, "the bank would still have questions about a deposit like that showing up before approval. You declining just makes the whole thing simpler. Cleaner. Nobody has to explain the deposit if the loan never happens." I hadn't thought of it that way. I found I liked it better that way. The second thing came from Ellen, a few days later, going through old boxes in my garage for paperwork the trust needed. She found a small jeweler's ticket from 1979, $11, folded inside an old cigar box I hadn't opened in years. Louise's handwriting was on the back, faded but legible. "For the road, and for coming home," it said. I hadn't known she'd kept the receipt. 40-some years, and I found out about it in a garage, from my sister. Just days before the family dinner where I was going to hang that same medal on a bicycle I hadn't bought yet. Ellen handed me the ticket without a word and let me have the moment. That's a skill some people never learn, knowing when a thing doesn't need narrating. I held that little scrap of paper a long time, standing in a garage that smelled like motor oil and cardboard. I thought about a woman who'd been gone 6 years and still had one more thing to tell me. Tucked away where I'd only find it when I needed it most. I bought the bicycle that same afternoon. A sky blue one with white handlebar streamers, the display model, because it was the only one left in her size before Sunday. By then the clock had a shape to it. Patricia confirmed the trust documents and the guarantor declination would both be fully executed and on file by the Friday before the dinner. That meant by Sunday, every piece of this was already permanent, whether or not anyone at that table knew it yet. I ironed the one suit that still fits. I told Gus he didn't need to come to this one. Some things a man walks into alone, on purpose. "Wear the medal anyway," he told me, which wasn't advice so much as a fact he already knew I'd follow. 12 days. That's how long it took, start to finish, to turn a loan committee packet and a folder of paperwork into something a family would have to sit through. I never raised my voice once through any of it. Not to Kevin. Not to Ashley. Not even to myself, alone in that truck, reading a caption I still hadn't stopped thinking about. Sunday evening, Kevin and Ashley's dining room. The good tablecloth was out, cream-colored linen Ashley only uses for company. A roast sat in the middle of the table, and I could smell it from the driveway before I even rang the bell. I'd worn the suit. I'd worn the medal, same as I have most days since I retired, tucked under my collar where nobody would think to look. Ellen met me at my truck and walked in beside me, not saying much, the way she does when she already knows a night is going to be long. Witnesses at that table, my sister Ellen, Kevin, Ashley, and Ashley's mother Sandra Pratt. Sandra was visiting from out of state, seated at the far end with the good napkin already tucked into her collar. We made it through the roast without incident. Small talk, mostly. Emma's soccer season. A cousin's wedding nobody had firm dates for yet. I answered when spoken to and let the rest of the table carry itself, the way I've learned to do at gatherings where I already know how the evening ends. Emma sat next to me, same as always, narrating her dinner roll's journey around her plate in a running commentary only a 7-year-old could sustain for that long. I let her talk. I've learned there's no better cover in this world than a child who hasn't stopped talking since the appetizer. Ashley kept glancing at a folder on the side table, checking it the way a man checks his mirrors before a lane change. She thought she had all the time in the world. I'd had 12 days to get comfortable with the idea that she didn't. Between the roast and the pie, Ashley slid a folder across the table toward me. I recognized it before she finished sliding it. Same shape, same tab, as the one sitting in a stack at the bank with my name typed on the guarantor line. "We just need your John Hancock Roy," she said, smiling the way people smile when they've already decided the hard part is over. "Family helping family." Kevin nodded along beside her, that same warm phone call voice from days earlier now sitting on his actual face. He reached for the pie server like the matter was already settled, like a signature was a formality on the order of passing salt. I didn't touch it. I reached instead for a second folder I'd brought with me, sitting by my plate the whole meal, unremarked on, easy to mistake for nothing at all. I set it down right beside hers. I opened it to the page Patricia had flagged for me that morning, a yellow tab marking the spot, plain as a highway sign. I read the relevant clause aloud. Plainly. No theatrics. The farmhouse, the land, and the estate, held in trust for Emma, administered by my sister Ellen. A standing right for Emma to occupy the property, and a bar on any sale before her 25th birthday. Nobody said anything for a moment. Ashley's smile was still on her face, but it had stopped doing any actual work. It just sat there, the way a porch light stays on after everybody inside has gone to bed. Kevin's face worked through something like static. Confusion first. Then the particular kind of understanding that arrives a half-second too late to stop it. He looked at the guarantor folder. Then at me. Then at his own daughter, 7 years old, eating a dinner roll 2 seats down, entirely unaware she was the reason the room had gone quiet. I've watched a lot of faces change over 43 years of gas station counters and way station lines. Most people's faces change slow, like weather moving in from a distance you can track. Kevin's changed all at once, the way a tire blows, fine, 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 and then not fine at all. Ashley reached for the folder like she could still fix the order things happened in. She couldn't. Some paperwork, once it's filed, doesn't care how fast you move your hands. The bank said no on Tuesday, I told them. Kevin opened his mouth. I kept going before he could fill the space with anything. I was in the room, I said. Sandra Pratt had gone very still at the end of the table, her fork halfway to a slice of pie she was no longer thinking about. The house goes to the girl who still calls me on Sundays, I said. She's 7. That was all. I didn't raise my voice once through any of it. Ellen told me later my hands never even shook, which surprised her more than it surprised me. Kevin finally spoke, quiet, the anger not fully arrived yet, still somewhere down the road behind him. Dad, when did you Tuesday? I said again, because some questions only need the answer they already got. I closed both folders. I thanked Sandra for the roast, because she hadn't done anything wrong tonight except sit at the wrong end of a table on the wrong evening. She managed a small nod, the kind you give a stranger at a funeral. Then I stood up, said goodnight to Emma, and drove myself home the same way I've driven myself everywhere for 43 years, steady, quiet, both hands where they belong. Kevin called 26 times in the 3 days after that dinner. I counted, same as I count most things. I didn't pick up once. There wasn't anything left to say on a phone that couldn't be said better through Patricia. I'd already said the only 3 lines that mattered, sitting at his own table. Here's what 12 days of quiet paperwork can undo. The $220,000 studio expansion loan was formally denied the following week. The bank's own debt ratio policy, on paper, with no need to mention my name at all. Nobody had to reject my son's family. The numbers already had. The $12,500 contractor deposit was gone. Non-refundable, already spent, already lost, weeks before anybody asked me for a signature that was never coming. The estate, the farmhouse, the land, the savings, roughly $540,000 in total, is routed permanently into Emma's trust now. Outside Kevin and Ashley's reach until she's 25 years old. Dale Fenwick's comparables folder on my back 40 went into my wood stove that same Sunday night, once I got home. I watched it catch, and I didn't feel much of anything watching it, which surprised me some. I expected to feel more. Patricia called Monday to confirm the denial letter had gone out to the bank's file, official, dated, nothing left undone. "How are you doing, Roy?" she asked, at the end of the call, almost as an afterthought. "Fine," I told her. It was mostly true. I want you to sit with these two numbers side by side, because I did, more than once. Kevin and Ashley went after roughly $220,000 they hadn't earned yet. Going after it cost them the loan itself. It cost them $12,500, already spent and gone. It cost them an estate worth about $540,000, routed permanently around them into a 7-year-old's trust. They were chasing one number and lost a much bigger one standing right behind it. None of that is the part one actually think about. The part one think about is the following Saturday, in the farmhouse driveway. Teaching Emma to ride a bike without training wheels, on the same gravel I learned to back a rig into decades before she was born. She fell twice. Got up twice, dusted off her knees without a single tear, which impressed me more than anything else that whole week. The third time, she rode the length of the driveway on her own, wobbling but upright, shouting for me to watch the entire way. I watched the entire way. Afterward, while she caught her breath by the mailbox, I unhooked the street Christopher medal from around my neck and looped it through her handlebars, right above the little bell. Louise gave it to me for the road, 40-some years ago, back when the road meant something different than it means now. I don't have much road left in me that matters as much as the road that little girl's about to ride. St. Christopher's retiring from me, I told her, and coming to work for you instead. She didn't fully understand what I meant. She rang the bell twice and asked if the shiny thing made the bike go faster. I told her it might. I didn't see any reason to tell her otherwise. Ellen watched the whole thing from the porch steps, arms crossed against the evening chill, not saying much, same as always. When Emma finally coasted to a stop by the mailbox, tired and grinning, Ellen caught my eye and gave me the smallest nod I've ever received in my life. It said more than most speeches I've sat through. I still drive out to that farmhouse most mornings. I still change my own oil. I still put on my good boots some Tuesdays, though there's less reason to now. I go into town anyway, because a man my age doesn't give up a habit just because the reason for it changed. 40 years of hauling teaches you, the load that shifts quietest is the one that kills you. Nobody hears it coming. You just feel the trailer start to lean, and by then you'd better already know what you're going to do about it. A man's word is a full tank. You find out the level when the road climbs. My son found out mine was still full. I found out his had been running on fumes longer than either of us wanted to admit. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. I will see you on the next one.